are going to talk about a lot of history of NC State and the ACC and the history of swimming. And really the fun part is, you know, people always ask me what it feels like to work with you. And I told people, like, I mean, I can go to you, I can go to your office and just talk about everything and just learning about what I, not only as a coach, but as a father, as a person. And so
try to fill you in. I learned a lot by the seat of my pants. I don't think I was an elite coach, certainly. In the 70s, I was learning. My mentor, one of my mentors, when I took the job, I called two coaches. I called Doc Councilman at Indiana, and I called Coach Don Easterling at NC State.
Wow.
I asked them for permission to call them once a month and pick their brain and ask them questions and learn about swimming. Both those gentlemen were so kind to me and so willing to teach me and talk to me about the sport and how to help athletes get faster and to share their ideas. Yeah. And to get in banter back and forth with me, much like we do in the office. You know, we debate how we're going to train athletes and what are the best methods to use in the pool, and how do you train a sprinter aerobically, and how do you train speed into a distance guy, and why are we doing what we do, and what about the weight room? So my closest mentor, and still my mentor, was Coach Easterling. He let me pick his brain. And I really feel as though he was on the cutting edge of a lot of things way back in the 70s and 80s that nobody else was doing. Maybe a few coaches, but he was very much on the cutting edge, which is why for all of the 1970s and a good part of the 1980s, the Wolfpack was the program in the ACC and one of the elite programs nationally. So when you go back and look historically, USA Olympians have come to the Wolfpack program in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and
2000s,
2010s, right?
2000. Well, we got the 2008.
And 2008. So there is no ACC team that has decade by decade produced Olympians like this one. And I think it's because, you know, Willis Casey, the athletic director, was the former swim coach, and the sport of swimming meant so much to him. And he brought in this young whippersnapper, Easterling, who turned the ACC on its ear with 12 or 13 straight championships. And Red Legend Pride began through the 70s and into the 80s, and it continues today. So, but those coaches, I had to learn. And so I was aggressively asking some of the best coaches in the country for advice. When I would go to meets, I would sit down with a Peter Daland, with a Doc Councilman, with a Dick Jokums, with a Greg Troy, with a Ray Buzzard from Tennessee. And I tried to pick their brains to see what knowledge they were willing to share. And now that I'm on the other side of my career, I'm picking Braden Holloway's brain and Bobby Guntoro's brain and the brain of so many young coaches to see what their thought patterns are in the sports and why they're doing the things that they're doing. And it's part of the reason I wanted to come here. I don't know nearly enough about the new and modern things that you're doing in sprinting. I'm fascinated by what you do. I love learning from you. I love learning what kind of training sets and programs Braden is writing with the stroke athletes, the 100 and 200 stroke athletes. And it's funny, I started my career coaching distance. Then I spent probably a good 25 years coaching the equivalent of our red group, the butterflyers, backstrokers, breaststrokers,
You were
IMers,
very successful, to say the
and
least,
middle distance guys.
in the
And
middle
now,
distance.
yeah, and now I've come back to coaching the aerobic side of things
Right.
again. But I've had so much time to pick so many brains and learn so many new things in the process that how do you stay relevant? You keep being willing to educate yourself and let others educate you. Everybody is a great teacher. Our athletes, as I tell them all the time, they're some of my best teachers.
Yeah.
I love to hear their thoughts, their ideas, what they like, what they don't like. And I think it helps me continue to stay relevant in the sport, and to be able to understand where they come from.
You know what? As a coach, sometimes we're trying to come up with the answer immediately without listen. And I think that's when hearing your experience that you listen before you understand everything, right?
That's true. We filled a whiteboard that afternoon, if you
We
remember.
did. Yeah.
And one of the great things that I've learned at NC State in the 2 years I've been here, and I've learned a lot from you and a lot from Braden and a lot from Coach Dan, we take the time to sit down and break our athletes down individually, and what system will work best for not the group, but the individual within the group.
Right.
And so much willingness on the part of the coaching staff here to write multiple workouts on any given day to make certain that every athlete is getting the type of training that they need. I've seen you go over to the pool 2 hours early to work with a handful of kids because what they're doing that day might be different than what the majority of the group is doing. I know Dan and I will go over and spend time with small groups of athletes, 1 or 2 kids maybe, and maybe they have class conflicts, but we'll do things. We'll write a workout to see if it'll be something that would work with other athletes at another time.
Right. But you know, we covered that how on the first, I think it was the second show that Braden and we talk about we're coaching people at NC State, and we're trying to figure out the physiology for each athlete and trying to create a program based off that, and that's the beauty of it. And I'm glad you're able to see that. And I mean, I know you'll be able to see that immediately, but that is the beauty of it.
I love that show when you talked about coaching people. I thought that was probably the biggest takeaway for me as a coach listening to that show, the constant refrain of we coach people and people what is important to us.
Yeah.
And when you learn your people, then you're a better coach for your people.
That's true. Speaking of coaching people, and you've seen elite athletes from different decades, right? And you know, I was listening to an interview with Carl Lewis yesterday. It is one of the best, I think, hands down, one of the greatest athlete of all time, right? You've seen swimmers from the 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, 2020s now, and I'd like to talk a little bit more on the present athletes. I call it the modern athletes. What impressed you the most with these athletes that's coming out of high school right now and in college right now and continue to swim after college? What's the difference between these athletes and maybe previous decades?
Well, if we go back to the 70s, 80s, and even the early 90s, those athletes only believed they ever truly were going to have one short period of time, maybe 6 years, maybe 8 years of their life, where they could be elite swimming athletes. Up until the 80s, all their careers were over when they finished their senior year of college. The elite male swimming athlete was finished at age 22.
Wow.
Because there were so few programs available for women, the women were finished at age 18. There was no college swimming until the 70s.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think athletes back then, swimming athletes, they were swimmers. They didn't think of themselves as athletes. They thought of themselves as swimmers.
Mm-hmm.
The modern swimmer truly is a more athletic person. I believe that today's great swimming athlete, because that's what they are, probably could excel in multiple sports should they have so chosen a different path. I think anybody that reaches the level of elite in our game, in our sport, probably could have reached the level of elite in several other sports because of their mindset, because of their focus, because of how we've incorporated strength training and weight training into our sport, how we've learned that one type of training does not work for everybody, how we understand that a sprinter can no longer train like a distance athlete, that they are a unique breed, and that the distance athlete is a unique breed.
Yeah.
I think we've brought so much science into the sport, and that's really helped us progress as a sport. Our coaches are better read, they're better prepared, they're better trained, they're better educated. USA Swimming, just the outreach from USA Swimming and the amount of literature that's available for all of us to read, and the creative ideas that coaches are sharing with one another. Our sport is not, it's a really sharing sport. Even at the high level, the greatest coaches seem to be willing to share. They want to help that next generation or that next group of young coaches take it to yet another level. So that's a big reason, I think, that we've seen our sport evolve, and we've seen things like the ISL. Who could have imagined?
You're right.
Right.
You know, it's exciting. Our strength conditioning coach Nate Brookerson, asked a really, really good question here. What characteristics are similar across your successful swimmers from the 70s to now?
Mental resolve is probably the most critical component to those athletes. Their mental resolve, their ability to withstand adversity, their willingness to share with their teammates, to appreciate their teammates, and to understand that while they may have been the recipient of a good gene pool, or they may have been a person with steel resolve and an incredible work ethic, I think that humility, all the great ones seem to have to be humble in our sport. They appreciate their teammates, they appreciate their coaches, and they're fearless and they're aggressive in their pursuit of excellence, and they're fearless and they're aggressive in their training. And more of the great ones, it's not so much that they love to win, it's that they hate to lose. And I don't think it's all of them, but I would say 80 to 90% of them are driven, not so much because they love to win, but that extra gear comes from their absolute despise losing.
That is so true, though. I think I remember watching Coleman Stewart. Is one of the greatest swimmers, coming out of NC State. Obviously, he's pretty well known as a backstroker. But I remember his sophomore year when he won the 100 backstroke. Before the 100 backstroke, he swam the 100 fly. In the morning, he missed the A finals in the 100 fly
at NCAAs.
So, and then he made it 7th, I think, in the morning on the 100 backstroke. So at night, he won the B finals because he was pissed. He won the B finals. He got up out of that pool. he walked straight, and I can see his face. You could see that he was still mad from being missing that A finals from the morning the 100 fly, past us, grabbed the recovery bag, and I turned around to Braden. He's going to win the 100 backstroke national title. Like, you ask Braden, like, at that particular moment, after his 100 fly, the way he walked, the way he got that eyes that he's going to win this 100 backstroke. There's no question about it. He was in lane 1, and we knew he was going to win. Well, one of some of the new things that you're doing right now over the past 4 years that you really haven't done before, and then you're seeing the benefits of this type of training. What are some of the things that can you share with us?
Yeah, I think when I came back to working with the aerobic athletes, those athletes that are pushing it toward the mile, the 500, where I am, I don't think I do nearly the volume.
Really?
No, not close to the volume that I did in the 70s and 80s. There's a distinct difference in how I'm training athletes. There are fewer longer swims. I try to break up my week into a cycle that kind of goes like this. Monday is aerobic training.
Yep.
With a lot of pulling work, putting equipment on, paddles, buoys, strap. And that's the day of the week when we'll see some longer swims, but not crazy long swims.
Right.
But swims where the athlete can go longer distance, but still do it fast.
See.
And sometimes a couple of repeats like that. Tuesday morning has become, for distance athletes, a power morning. So
I noticed.
Right? You've seen that.
Yep.
Go to the power racks, the power towers, the socks. We wear socks on our arms, socks on our feet. And we try, because to be a great distance swimmer in today's world,
yep,
they're all fast.
Yeah.
The 500, you have to be fast.
Sprint.
Yeah, it's turning into a sprint. If you can't go 135 in the 200 free,
you can't go out with every one of those.
You can't go out anymore.
No. Yeah.
So Wednesday, I do a lot of race concentrated pace work.
I see.
Just really, what do you want to hold? What kind of speed do you want to hold in a race? Let's see what we can do. Or just a lot of hard, just fast swims on a longer rest interval.
I see.
Thursday, we come back and we'll do 200 and 500 freestyle type training.
Okay.
Sorry, Tuesday afternoon is 400 IM work or 500 free training, depending on the athlete. Thursday afternoon, it's 200 IM training or 500, 200 free, depending on the athlete.
I see. Friday
morning, it goes back to power work. But this time, it might be a circuit that we'll run through with our athletes. 7 or 8 different stations that each last 7 to 8 minutes that are pretty explosive.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little more swimming, a little less resistance than on Tuesday morning. Mm-hmm. Friday afternoon, I just call it spaghetti day. Whatever we haven't done well, whatever we haven't done enough of, whatever needs some more polishing and some more focus, that's what we'll do Friday afternoon. And then we'll end the week with more aerobic work on Saturday morning.
I see.
But
so overall volume is a lot lower than you used to do back in the but you're probably going a lot faster.
Much faster
pace.